Hey, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. It's Dave. Nice to have you back. Ben Cardall is with me today. Ben is from the UK, and Ben is here to to blow your mind. Yeah, you're going to enjoy this. Ben is a deductionist, consultant, coach, and he loves and knows so much about Sherlock Holmes. Ben does a stage show. He helps people. He does coaching. And he can see things. It picks up on things. If you're wondering what that feels like, Ben did this to me at the end of our interview, and he blew me away with some of the things that he knew about me just from observing. So if you want a good way to learn how to remember people's names, I know I'm not the best at learning people's names and remembering. Ben gives us some great tips on what he does in a public setting, takes us behind the scenes. And you're always like, how did that person do that? Ben's going to pull the curtain back and let you see a little bit about how he approaches the world and how he thinks. Here on Living the Next Chapter, this is going to be fascinating. I hope you can stick around. Stick around to the very end and you'll see a genuine interaction between myself and Ben as he nails stuff about me that I'm just shocked. I'm still shocked. It's amazing. Here, Living the Next Chapter. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I have somebody with me today that's, I was going to say, he's making me a little bit excited and nervous and a little unsure and fascinated all at the same time. Ben is here with me today. Ben has written a book, the monographs. He's also, he does some amazing stuff on YouTube. You got to check out the link in the show notes. Head over to Ben's YouTube channel. Check out what he does. It started with Sherlock Holmes, and here we are today. So, Ben, welcome to the podcast. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for having me. It's a real treat to be here.
So, I see photos on the back behind you there, some inspiration there behind you. Can you tell me, first of all, let's share with everybody where you are in this great big world of ours.
So I'm currently in the UK, right in the centre of England, in a place that's literally called the Midlands. And I'm from Staffordshire. So, if you're familiar with, Robbie Williams, Royal Dalton, Slash from Guns N' Roses, these are all people that started their life. Well, I suppose Royal Dalton isn't a person, more of an enterprise, but they are all things that started their enterprise in my hometown.
So from Royal Dalton to Slash, that is a room that I'd like to go in and hang out in that room for a moment. That's a nice mix. That's a nice mix.
Lemmy from Motorhead was also born and raised in Stoke-on-Trent as well.
So instead of becoming a famous musician, you've switched gears. You're going to go do something completely different. Then you don't want to upstage Slash, right? You don't want to make him look bad.
No. Come on, you got to leave it to the legends, right?
You got to leave them a little room. So thank you for sharing your space with us. Ben, tell us a little bit about your fascination with Sherlock Holmes, and was there a moment in time where something captivated you? Tell me about that.
Yeah, there was. So, high school, at the tender age of around 13, 14, I'm in a relationship with what people would call, their first love, their high school sweetheart. For those who've experienced that, it's huge, it's passion, it's love, and you feel it's never ending, like you are the only two Romeo and Juliet kind of people in the world. And, around that time, we started reading The Adventure of the Speckled Band as part of our English class. And it was one of those books that had at the start bits of history, like Arthur Conan Doyle, who he was, who he drew inspiration from in order to develop the character of Sherlock Holmes. And I remember reading it thinking, wow, this is cool. Like all of these skills were put together from like real people to this. This is great. So it's kind of like a teenage fascination at that stage. But then not long after we'd started reading as part of my class, I'd found out that, my girlfriend at the time was cheating on me with my best friend, for around 6 months, which was, For anyone that's experienced that, it's like your heart just crumbles into a million pieces. And I very much made a distinct kind of determined commitment to learn all that I could about this, so that I would never have to feel this pain again. Like I would see it coming, or they wouldn't be able to lie to me, or I would be aware of that kind of information that I might have missed before, because I trained myself to be able to see it. And quite literally since that point, every day that's gone by, I'm ferociously researching, testing, trialing, all of the skills that could be possibly even remotely connected towards the development of Sherlockian attributes. So at this stage, I think it would be fair to say I don't really know where my emotional damage ends and my teenage fascination kind of began. But, c'est la vie, as they say. It certainly developed an interest in life for me.
So that's the true circle of life. You just don't know where one ends and one begins and just continues.
That's the one.
Okay. Okay. So what we're talking about now, if you haven't gone to Ben's his YouTube channel, you'll see as soon as you go there what I'm talking about. This isn't what Ben's doing is not like some kind of cheesy trick you can do at a dinner party to impress people. Ben has got a gift and knowledge that he uses for good and not for evil. Thank you. But what I love, Ben, is there's so much that you've unpacked that we can learn from just by how you do what you do. I'm just wondering if you can ever switch this off. Like, are you on all the time? You walk into any social event with someone and you're like, okay, that person's lying. That person's not real. And you're just like picking people off. Like, do people have like a little sign above their heads, or what is it like?
The short answer would be, yeah, I am always on. But because of how long I have been doing it now, you kind of learn to apply yourself more in moments that require it. So, like, say, for example, I am called in for a job. There's a specific need for me to be wherever I am, looking at the people, whoever it is that they are. I can be more committed to that particular role because I've got it in my mind. I've got a job. I've got a something to deliver on. Someone needs this kind of information, and I have to go through everyone that's there to try and be able to fulfill on that. But if I'm going out with my wife or my kids and we're just kind of milling around doing things, there are things that I notice all the time, but there is a lot less kind of additional pressure that comes with that because it's like a relaxed environment. I'm always ticking over. I'm always thinking about things. Like my wife enjoys these kinds of competition shows that you see on on Netflix and on TV, where there's one skill set that they're doing. Like there was one on Netflix that she watched with glass blowing and this kind of thing. Everybody's competing to blow the best glass, and I'll kind of walk through and be like, well, she doesn't mean whatever she's saying. That's not completely true. She's going to wind up dropping. And sure enough, it comes to fruition, and these kind of things reveal themselves at the end. But that's how I like to relax. You know how some people might like to relax, I don't know, listening to music or going for a run or, I don't know, playing with the dog. I like to relax by, learning how to do a Rubik's Cube from memory or reading a book or I don't know, testing out something that I've been working on or, that's my relaxing time. I don't feel the additional kind of, the kind of mental stress that comes along with this. But yeah, it's there's never a moment to truly kind of sit back and just enjoy some kind of quiet rainforest noises inside of your head, just to kind of tune it all out.
Right. Okay. So Ben, take us back to one of your early lessons you learned, like maybe back when you were a student and that girl broke your heart, and you learned something about the human condition and how we are and how we operate, and then you saw it demonstrated in front of you and went, you put the pieces together and went, this is what I learned and this is what I observed, and it's now fact for me, and now I see it everywhere. Because I'll give you an example. Like if I buy a car and I buy a red two-door car, I will probably be oblivious to red two-door cars until the moment I buy it. And then once I've bought it, now I see them everywhere, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, how come there's so many? Like every time I turn a corner, there's another red two-door car. So as you learn something, I'm sure it becomes something that you can put into your daily life, and now you see it. Take us back to one of those early lessons that you learned.
Absolutely. So, that one, arguably one of the very first was, I would say things to the effect of, oh, she would never lie to me. Oh, they would never do that. Oh, why would they do that to me? And on the surface, it doesn't make sense to your emotional connection to another person. The reality of the situation is, when you're saying, oh, they would never lie to me, you're saying things like, oh, I would never give them reason to lie to me. Or, oh, we have a relationship where there would never be a reason for them to hide something from me. And it was one of the lessons that came from a direct quote of Sherlock Holmes, in that emotional qualities are antagonistic to clear reasoning. When we are too emotionally entangled with something, it is a struggle for us to think clearly about it. Now, it sounds just incredibly pedantic to say that out loud, and I'm by no means encouraging you to be these cold loner type people that need to go and live in the woods somewhere away from anyone. That's not the case. It is more the acknowledgement that our emotions can prevent us from seeing what's in front of us so clearly. And that's what happened to me at the time. So the more I learned to control my emotional side after the fact, I would reflect on those moments where she said that my girlfriend in high school, she said, I'm just going to go to my singing lesson, or I'm just on the phone to one of my friends, and I would play it back in my head, and the behaviors that then stood out as a result, like if you were on the phone to your friends whom I've met, why are you going outside to take the call? And these kinds of questions that kind of stood out, I could have capitalized on that information and pushed it further, which again sounds like I'm encouraging neuroses. I'm not encouraging anybody to be neurotic, but it's just the acknowledgement that at that time I couldn't process the information as clearly as I wanted to, because I was so emotionally connected to this person in front of me. And since then, I've had a couple of relationships before I met my beautiful wife at this moment. And there was a previous relationship where, I'm trying to think of one that's politically correct to say out loud. She changed the way that she was dressing, right? Which is a taboo topic for any man to broach with a woman, in that, because it's got the misconception of it being, controlling to a certain degree. Yeah. And bear in mind, I never cared or chose or had a question about why she was choosing to dress the way that she did. But there was a particular moment where she started actively asking me to not go out with her and her friends. And this was mirrored with, let's call them much more revealing clothes. Yeah. In that way. So I just processed the information this way around, see what other elements I could connect it to, because that was a big change in the way that she used to go through life. You know, she had, for quite some time, a degree of kind of body dysphoria, which, you then have to think about these moments like, okay, is she just overcoming that? Is this her confidence coming out, you know, the whole, if you've got it, flaunt it. And, you know, which I'm totally behind, you know, I thought that was great. But then I got to marry that response with, the forcible disconnect from me, the fact that she would come home smelling of smoke, and I don't smoke. I've got nothing against smokers. I just don't like it around me. I've got asthma, and so I don't like it around me. So when I'd ask her about smoking, she would openly lie to me about it, which is sort of a gateway experience. And I learned more about this, and I ended up being able to figure out that she was actively pursuing other men at that particular stage. So that was one of those moments that kind of put that into practice of learning how to truly understand a situation that could be emotionally charged to the point where you just get nothing done. I'm sure everyone's had a particularly similar situation where you've been in an argument with somebody and you're both yelling back and forth to the point where you lose the original purpose of what you started arguing about in the first place. Right. If you could kind of boil it down to, all right, what does this person want and what does this person want? Let's just talk about it before, somebody feels that they have to say it louder in order to just be right. And there was a couple of situations since where I've had to talk to, I'm trying to think of the polite, but drug dealers, people have been confirmed of, neglecting their children to a horrific degree, and that kind of affects my moral compass massively because I don't fully grasp how another individual can see the children that they care for in that way, and yet I have to talk to this person about their knowledge about a different crime without my knowledge of what they've got up to and what they've done affecting the interaction. So that's the way this kind of thing can grow, can change. You learn to ask yourself if your emotions, your opinions, your biases, your prejudices, whatever word you want to call them, if they have a particular relevance at that time. And if they don't, well, I'll listen to them later when I'm by myself. Neuroscience tells us that we can't completely turn off our biases anyway. If I can learn to quiet them, or at least leave it till a point where it is relevant, where I can vent at that stage and get it out, then it will stop me. It will allow me to process the information in a way that it is just being communicated and without how I believe it is in that moment. That's arguably one of the biggest lessons that I learned throughout the whole thing, to view a situation truly as it is without me being involved. I'm just an observer. For want of a better phrase, I don't matter at that moment. My opinions don't really have a place. I'm just gathering information, processing it, seeing what it works with in the environment, and then looking at the places where it connects and where it doesn't. Because either way, that will tell us how we move forward from there. So yeah, that's arguably one of the greatest lessons that I learned, is to have control over myself to a point where I can go, okay, my anger, my whatever it is at this time doesn't have a place here. However entitled I feel to be angry.
Right.
It doesn't have a place. It's not going to help. It's not going to get anything done. I'll have a conversation. We'll resolve it in the best way possible. And then I'll go home and, I don't know, scream into a pillow.
Yeah.
just so it releases that way around. That's one of the greatest lessons for me personally that I took from the whole Sherlockian enterprise.
Okay, so like when we look back in hindsight, everything kind of, the puzzle pieces all seem to make sense. And there's the smoke I smell, there's the distancing. I see all these things, and together combined they make sense. But in a future context, we don't see all the puzzle pieces typically. And so we're kind of living by reaction. So are you kind of taking a hindsight rear view mirror look at life and putting it in the future so that you're seeing people in a different context than we would normally see? Is that kind of what's happening?
It's like both in that sense. I'm kind of moving it forward to the future and back into the past. There's a term that comes from the Sherlock books, which is deduction, deductive reasoning, this kind of thing, and it's kind of become a buzzword that when people hear it, they believe that they have a knowledge of what's being spoken about. There are actually 3 different methods of reasoning. There is deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and abductive reasoning. And basically, a deduction would be moving forwards on a relativistic certainty. Like if I saw a maths problem, there was 2, then a space, then a number 2, then equals, and then the number 4. I would be able to deduce that the missing thing was the plus sign, right?
Right.
Whereas induction, you're moving forwards on the most likely circumstance in that way. So if you take the same maths problem, you put the plus in and remove the 2 number 2s. So you've got a space, a plus, a space, equals, and 4. Now, we could reasonably induce that it could be 3 and 1, it could be 2 and 2, right? These are the most likely ways that we go about this. But that's really what I'm doing. I'm asking myself in a particular situation, okay, what would be if we've got a presentation of information? What would be true of this information moving forwards? And then the abductive reasoning would be reasoning backwards. So if we've got the presentation, I'm asking myself, what would have to have been true in the build-up that allowed me to see this kind of information here?
Right.
Like if you were to walk into a room and see a smashed glass on the floor, you would be able to abduce that somebody has knocked over a glass onto the floor, right? But inductive reasoning might tell us, okay, if there are cats in the house, cats are fond of knocking things off the tabletop. That could also be another possibility. You know, a simple accident could have been one. If it's got juice in there, maybe a child has fallen and then wandered off to take care of themselves, and you're just seeing this presentation that's there. So these kind of questions that arise, how am I going to explain everything that I see based on what it connects to? That's right. Primarily what I'm doing.
Okay, so now you've taken this. And again, you can go to the YouTube channel and you'll see what I'm talking about. You've taken this to the stage now.
Yeah.
And now you're doing this in front of an audience and you are unpacking this in front of us. Tell us can you give us an example of being up on stage and you're doing something and kind of the reaction from the crowd? Because I'm just finding this so fascinating, Ben, to watch this on YouTube. So I want a little behind the scenes of this and how this happens.
So I'm that guy that will pay attention to the things that people immediately assume are insignificant in that way. Like, just as a side aspect, when I was going through my personal trainer qualifications for the follow up to the monographs, I spent 3 months reading about mold. So I would have an understanding of how facilities in the gym are taken care of by sight. I would have an understanding of the people's shoes and the places that they went to. I would have an understanding about smells relative to this, which would tell me about personal hygiene and etc. and these kinds of things. So that's really my philosophy. And with it relating to the stage, I came from a mentalist background, which if anyone's familiar with Darren Brown or you've seen the TV show The Mentalist, mm-hmm. it's kind of like that in a way. But there is a certain degree of mechanicry that would allow you to perform these things. I was the guy that really annoyed a lot of mentalists at that time, because I was an advocate of, okay, there are so many people in this industry making it look like you can do what you say you're doing. How many of you are actually looking into ways of actually doing what you say that it is that you're doing? So like, there was classic games of, hiding a coin in your hands, or, the most obvious one I kind of dip my toe in with is I would say to people, I'm going to memorize this pack of cards in a few seconds. As an audience, the kind of psychology is that they'll go, okay, so he's not memorizing that. Why would he tell us? So he's not doing that. So as I'm actually doing this, and we go through the rest of the effect that way around, they're either left with one of two situations. Either they can consider it a great trick, in which case I'm fine with that, which it means, repeat bookings, more business. That's great. Or they consider it a demonstration of skill. Either way, repeat bookings
Right,
in this way
right.
around. And that's what kind of got me interested. So the more things that I explored, the more I found I could do what I said that I was doing. And arguably one of the more quirky ones I did, with you mentioning YouTube, I had something in the London special of my web series, The Deductionist. And we were working on Baker Street, and there is a room full of people that were invited to cosplay as their favourite Sherlock Holmes characters. Not everyone did, bear in mind, but there was a room full of people, and it was I was stood in front of them, and there was maybe 50, 60 people this way round. And I'd been sat in the corner the whole night up until that stage with a pair of sound-cancelling headphones on and a blindfold. I'm just sat in the corner. And naturally, people would be curious, so they come over and and I can't hear or see anything. So they're trying to mess with me, poking me, and I'm give me a fright of my life. And I'm a big fan of the kind of sink or swim moments. It's either going to work or it's not. We'll see how it does. So I stood in front of them and I asked for everybody just to say their names out loud when I pointed to them. So I took my blindfold off, took my headphones off, and everyone right around, I'm going, da, 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 this way round, and we've gone through them all. And, at the same time, because I know what I'm about to do, I'm looking at their shoes too. So I'm trying to memorize what I can about their shoes and connect it to a name. So that when I put my blindfold back on, and we get 4 random people up. It might have been 3. But anyway, a couple of random people come up, and I asked them, just if you wouldn't mind, put either your right shoe or your left shoe on the table. It's up to you. Just put your right shoe or your left shoe on the table. And I'm blindfolded, and I'm squidging the shoe. I'm trying to see if I can remember who had this kind of shoe on. And with that, I'm feeling for the treads. So I'm figuring out if there's a lot of stairs in this person's life, if they've commuted, like traveled by car or traveled by the tube. And so I'm talking about like where they live, what kind of a house they live in, their kind of cleanliness routine, if they smoke or if they don't, how tall they are, and then, getting their name as well, because I can figure out all of this stuff about the shoe. The shoe reminds me of what I saw, and when it connects to the name. So it seems like this really cool thing. And, that's all the, if you want to call it deduction, but it's all the kind of Sherlockian skill set is to me. We're just taking stock of everything, including what most people would consider, irrelevant.
Yeah.
At that stage. So yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. There was I'm a big fan of the What's in My Pocket game I play at weddings. It's kind of my take on an old vaudevillian piece, in which you get the guys who I can guess your weight, I can guess this, and there was 1 or 2 people that was like, I can guess what's in your pockets. And that was really fascinating to me, because I love things of a period of that time. It was really cool. My mum's very often said that I was born in the wrong century. Even before I became a fan of Sherlock Holmes, she said that since I was a kid. But so we'd and I'm saying we because the guy that does a lot of my filming would come with me as well. His name's Adam. And we go to these things, and naturally at weddings you get a good mix of people, which is, your drunken people, your skeptical people, your screamers, your, oh my God, I love this kind of thing, or the please don't talk to me because I'm scared you'll see it. All kinds of people. And the people that I love playing What's in My Pocket with are the kind of aggressively skeptical guys, bet it won't work on me kind of people. And the kind of predisposition was that if I'm being so aggressive, I'm going to show him what for, which puts you in a small box of thinking anyway. And there was this one particular session I had at a castle called Belvoir Castle. It was a wedding, and there was a gentleman there who exhibited some affinity to nose-related substances, way around. And he was like, oh yeah, so what's in my pocket? Said this way around. I was like, look, I get the fact that you're quite skeptical, and you want to seem like you're the alpha of this group. I appreciate that, but if we continue on down this road, I'm going to have to ask you to dispose of that naughty stuff that's in your pocket. I didn't phrase it in terms of the exact specifics because I couldn't be sure. I knew he was on a substance, but I couldn't be sure which one. It turned out in the end it was the nose related one, but I mentioned this way round of just the substance that was in his pocket, and it had the effect of him just completely quietening down and let everybody else have some fun. But it was also spot on. He was carrying some stuff in his pocket at that time. But yeah, so there's lots of these little anecdotes I could call on. There was a lady I've seen at a supermarket, not long after a gig years ago. And, I noticed that her son at the time had some, crushed up Cocoa Pops. I don't know if you know Cocoa Pops. It's a breakfast cereal where it turns the milk chocolatey. And the kid had some crushed up Cocoa Pops on her knee. On his knee, rather. And she's looking really stressed on the phone. And I'm talking to Adam at the time, about the way this kind of stuff works in the public. And I pointed towards this lady. We were like kind of, I don't know, 15, 20 meters away. So I could point at her, but she didn't know. It wasn't like socially awkward that way. Yeah. And I was like, look, take for example that woman over there. She's just split up with her boyfriend. She's just moved into a new place. And she's stressing about whatever it is that's going on, about how she's going to work with the child and being a single mom. And it's really a stressful time, which naturally, given that Stoke-on-Trent, we are known for being quite abrasively honest at this moment. So Adam was words to the effect of, "You're just making it up," like this. But the swearier version of that. And, so I said, fair enough. And I was like, I wandered over. I was like, excuse me, this is a ploy that I've used many times in order to get confirmation of these things out in the field. I was like, excuse me, sorry to bother you. I can see you just finished a kind of important phone call, but I'm just from the local university. I just wondered if you wouldn't mind helping me for a few moments with my psychology study that I'm doing. She's like, oh yeah, sure, whatever, calming down. And so I said, I'm just looking to monitor how comfortable strangers are talking to each other. So I'm just going to ask you some questions. You can ask me some questions. You tell me how comfortable you feel afterwards, and we'll go on our merry way. And so I asked her about her son and her moving, which then led to her telling me about the recent breakup and whatnot. And Adam was stood behind me like, what? I was like, thank you for your time. I mean, she'd asked questions about me as well, so it seemed pretty copacetic that way. It's like, thank you for your time. And we just wandered off. We bought our stuff and we left. But yeah, so that's really all it is. I'm taking it in the same way that a holy grail of sorts within this world that I'm very much asked about a lot is, can you look at somebody and figure out what they do for a living? The short answer is, yeah, of course you can. But it depends on the information that you're bringing to it. Like, say, for example, I saw a fast food worker walking down the streets, and I saw the infamous kind of golden arches on their hat.
Right.
I know immediately they work for McDonald's. I know immediately. Right? That's the kind of connection. People are hoping for the really niche observations or the really obscure details and whatnot. But the reality of it is, I'm just taking stock of what it is that I notice in that way. So yeah, there we go.
I love it. Okay, so let's jump to the book, Ben.
Yeah.
The monograph's a comprehensive manual on all you need to know to become an expert deductionist.
Deductionist, yeah.
Good title. You got me with the title. Tell me about the book. It came out September 2015. Is that right?
Yeah. Good long while ago. While ago.
And so tell me about the book.
So the book itself, I wanted a book like this when I was training in this area, a book that would have everything that I needed to know in order to get started. Just to have it contained all within one area instead of having to go, I'll get something from here, I'll get this course, I'll get this textbook, I'll get this teacher, I'll get this podcast, I'll get this YouTube tutorial. I just wanted it all in one place. And so I developed what I considered, because it was only my opinion at the time. Nobody else, to the best of my knowledge, really cared about the development of a Sherlock Holmes kind of skill set. So I developed what I considered would be a governing set of heuristics, pillars of skills that you would need in order to be able to do this, and the information that you could use in order to get you going. So I looked at my studies within the neuroscience world and developed a mindset training around this for the emotional control, for the battling fatigue, for the understanding of different states of mind relating to different physical components and how that makes you think and your capabilities within that area. And then I set about memory training, which is everything from observing information that's in front of you to developing, the big memory palace this way around. And it kind of spiraled into, I think it was about 18 or 19 chapters off the top. So there was work on tattoos, there was work on mobile phones, wallets, shoes, clothes, bone structure of the face, specific writing style, spotting lies in writing, different vocations that could use this. So how would a teacher use this? How would a med student use this? How would somebody else use this? How would a policeman use this? There was the job inferences. Glasses was a fun one as well, because in the right circumstance, you could observe somebody's pair of glasses and have an idea as to where they live, which is you say that out loud, and this kind of those two pieces of information don't really go together.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so all that information was in there, and I was under no illusion that it was very niche, that it was very specific. It would target a very specific requirement, and I took it to my publisher, who's now a really good friend of mine, and he loved the idea. Absolutely loved it, and it's been one of their best sellers ever since. It's still regularly top 5, top 10 of the bestseller on Amazon as well, and it did wonderful things in terms of connecting me with people that I would have never met in my entire life before, your good self being one of them. But it's afforded me opportunities to work with some of the very popular acronyms within the security world this way around, and to develop my own license within investigations and the remote assessments that are brought my way. And there's something to be said for this, because as this being the skill set, the way of looking at things, because there is not one person who I've spoken to, not that there isn't one person that hasn't had a bad experience with this, but there is not one person that I've spoken to who it has not helped, regardless of their vocation, regardless of their particular preferences and whatnot. I've got just as many stories of builders that I've met that can use this material, and chefs that have, and teachers that have, and butchers that have, and certainly within the medical profession and the security profession, there's tons of people, but this has got an obvious direct application towards that. Salesman, as another thing that it's looking to help, and it kind of brings it back towards my original goal as a teenager of never struggling, of always being able to put one foot in front of the other towards some kind of success in whatever it is, whether it's success of feeling better or more confident or more aware, or success in your work or your environment and the relationships you'll develop as a result. Because in essence, what you are connecting to as a result of what's contained within the book is information that either people don't want or don't have access to or can't be bothered to develop access to, because there's smartphones that do everything for us nowadays.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so the monographs was created with that need of creating a good starting point, which led me to two spin-offs in that sense that I'm kind of working on simultaneously at the moment. I'm working on a second edition of the monographs, so it's a development of everything that I've learned and developed on those particular chapters since it came out. And so if the monographs were a kind of, if Sherlock Holmes were a real person alive today, what would be in his head to allow him to do what he does? The spin-off is, what if House, MD, were a real person alive today? What would be in his head to allow him to do what he does, with House being, a version of the Sherlock Holmes stories as well? So yeah, it's certainly been a real joyful exploration. It's immense, hell of a cognitive load you have to bear, but but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So for someone coming to your book for the first time and they're going to pick up the monographs, is this book designed for somebody who's at entry level, real starting from the very bottom, or is this meant to be like continuing education for somebody who would be doing or be involved in this already?
Yeah, it's a great question. My goal with this is that it would have something for everyone. Obviously, if you're coming to the monographs as a point of continued education, or a lot of experience within a particular field that relates to these kind of things, then it will do a lot for you. But for somebody coming to this from like absolutely nothing, it's going to take you to the requirements of what it is. So like within each chapter, I had like a format of how I would break this down, in terms of how I used to think about developing this kind of material, what I would need to do to develop this kind of material, and then literally the training steps I went through to take it from nothing to beginner to capable to intermediate and so on and so forth. And that's kind of what led it to being like a 425-page book. Wow. I wanted to make sure that, as it deals primarily with information and the application of it, that would need to cover as many bases as possible. Obviously, they can't all be covered because it is just one humble book at this stage. But yeah, it's something for everyone. I think would be the best way of looking at that.
Okay. So while we're chatting, I have your website up. And by the way, your website's gorgeous.
Thank you.
You have to go just to go check out the website. It's beautiful. If you want to learn how to build a website to make it look good, you want to come here. So on here, I see like links. I see your bio, your stage show, your services. I'm on your one-on-one coaching link right now.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how you help people through the book? But we've talked about that, but through coaching and working with clients. Can you kind of open the doors to that a little bit too?
Of course. Yeah. So I never really understood how much I would be able to kind of bring this information out to separate people. I was of the opinion, somewhat kind of naively, that when the book came out, it would reach whoever it reached, and it would help whoever it helped in that sense. And then I had a number of people approaching me about one-on-one sessions and developing that material privately with the benefit of a live human being coaching this way around. So in the end of it, I developed a kind of a number of services that I put forward. The one-on-one is arguably the best, but like you could say that of anything because it's one-on-one. It's a private session with your coach, so you're going to get direct feedback that's personally tailored towards your own requirements. And very often these one-on-one sessions, people will come to me. I just want to learn to be more aware of my surroundings for when I do my mall security role. I just want to be able to feel like I'm bringing more protection to the people and the things within this environment. Good. Great. Here are the steps we'll go through to be able to get that for you. Brilliant. But there are some people who'll come to me and go, I want to master it all. it all being whatever it is that I've put forward as being able to teach at that stage. And so I developed my own curriculum around that. I developed a few different versions to make sure that I would have different requirements suited. So I had a 6-month curriculum, a 12-month curriculum, a 2-year curriculum, and a 5-year curriculum. And obviously it can be created ad hoc as a result after the fact. I did specific courses for situational awareness. If you've ever, are you familiar with Jason Bourne as a character?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The first, it's a classic scene that's referenced by everyone that dabbles with situational awareness. The first film where he's in the diner.
License plate numbers of all 6 cars outside. I can tell you that our waitress is left-handed and the guy sitting up at the counter weighs 215 pounds and knows how to handle himself. I know the best place to look for a gun is the cab of the gray truck outside. And at this altitude, I can run flat out for a half mile before my hands start shaking. Now, why would I know that?
He's talking about, I know that guy weighs 240 pounds, that his car's the best place to look for a gun. I could tell you all 6 license plates of the car outside. There was a lot of request for these kinds of things. So I developed my own situational awareness course so I could give that to people that way around. Which then led me to working with a wonderful company called the Arcuri Group, who developed situational awareness specialist programs that we do as well. So you get qualifications, like legitimate CV recognized qualifications after this. There was a lot of people curious about the niche aspects of Sherlockian people reading, like looking at somebody's phone and figuring out details about them, looking at their wallets and their glasses and their pens. My kind of warning that I give out in the specifics of the courses is I'm at heart with this material an obsessive nerd. Obsessive. And there was one moment that kind of led to be a warning where I gave a 4-hour session on reading people's pens, just their pens, and some of the information. Like I had for a while people just sending me pictures of pens. What can you tell me about this? I'd send it back to them and be like, this way around, it's great. But that led to Sherlockian people reading, which is by no means 4 hours on pens, but that kind of nitty gritty niche kinds of stuff, and which led to more requests, which is both lovely and a challenge, because I am one person. As much as I love to talk about this all day, every day, it was a challenge to kind of be able to do that. So I am developing at the minute my own online training platform. It's called Omniscient Insights. Which is quite a mouthful, but that will be available soon. I've been prompting that information through my YouTube channel, and that will contain a lot of these courses that you can move through in your own time and at your own leisure, in just as much detail as I physically possibly can, through video and whatnot. But one of the things it sounds quite kind of lofty, but they are, my students, I always refer to them as my friends, or the people that I talk to, just because I don't like that kind of hierarchical thing. It makes me feel weird. But that, they are my students. They, other than the information that they're getting, they are a fan of the practical assessments that I developed, because I pressure test them in ways that they haven't experienced before. I developed my own virtual reality testing, which is the creation of, it sounds a lot fancier than what it is, but it's basically the creation of specific 360-degree videos. So that instead of like one of my screens is here, so that instead of just sat here watching and learning about a cerebral skill, you can actually inhabit it and look around and these kinds of things.
Wow.
Which is directly related towards how you would have to use it in the real world, this way around, and not in a training setting. So I push a lot of my focus towards application, because I don't want the information just to sit as something curious or something interesting that you heard one time online. I want it to be something that you can be able to use. So yeah, that's really where my when my training focus is that way around, and it's very much a pass or fail. And like in particular discussions of when I'm doing a teaching element, just the download of information before we get to it, I set up a lot of awareness training through this. Like, are you familiar with the invisible gorilla experiment with the guys passing basketballs back and forth and the gorilla just walks through? And because you're focused on the counting of the basketball passes, you don't see this gorilla walk through, wave at you, and just walk away. So what I used to do for people is I would kind of like change my shirt halfway through a session, or the pictures would move behind me. And one of the things that I used to do is I wear glasses, so I would start off with like a normal pair of glasses, and then I would put up kind of like a video illustration and like change them out for another pair of glasses, ones that don't have lenses in and whatnot. So there would be the visual connection of like a reflection. If I look up towards my ring light, you're not gonna see that if I tilt my head in the same way when I don't have a lens, which might seem pedantic on the surface, but all I'm really building into you from that moment is a kind of acute level of awareness for the potentiality of change, because that can come at any time, at any place, from anywhere. And the only way you're going to be prepared for that is that if you take stock of these many changing times that go forward, because if something's happened and you haven't observed it, or you don't have the information to call on, then you can't be of service to that particular requirement. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I've definitely found that I have a huge passion for this kind of teaching element, because I can make sure in kind of like some weirdly spiritual way that these skills live on, because they have benefit, and this is 100% my opinion, nothing more. They have benefit far beyond the immediate impact of knowing things that other people don't. Like, me and my wife have been together now for close to 5 years. There's never been a single crossword of any kind, and we both count that down to this kind of acknowledgement of information and the mindset that's there. We can, don't be wrong, there's moments where we annoy the bejesus out of each other this way around, but we're able to communicate better because we're aware of these things. My relationship with my kids and whatnot, during the moments where they're having problems, where they wouldn't feel as comfortable coming to a father figure, a parent, in that way around. If I'm aware of what's going on, I can help them in a way that they don't have to cross that barrier. I can help them through this because I'm aware of that kind of information before. And so it's really become something that is what I would refer to as the ultimate people skill. The ultimate people skill. It's like if you knew things that other people didn't, everyone can say that, of course, but when you hold yourself up against, at a rough number, 90% of the other humans that you interact with, if you have access to information that all of them don't, how would you use it? Right? And for the people that have put the effort in to be able to use it, that's really where they see the benefits there.
Love it. Okay, Ben, so before we go, I think some people have this default setting that they're not good at something. So, for example, I'm not good with names. So I'm just going to live the rest of my life, and I'm never going to learn anybody's name because I'm terrible at it. So I'm not even going to try. And what I love is when you made that connection between a person's name and their shoes, and then you made a link. So then when you saw the shoes, you remembered the name. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, it was just like a passing kind of, well, this is how I did it. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So you're telling me, Ben, that we can not go to our default setting of, I'm not good at A, B, or C, so that's my limit. You're telling me then, Ben, that my limit is not my limit, and I can go past that limit in how I do life and how I can learn ways of, for example, learning people's names and making that association, where that my limitation is no longer my limitation. You're telling me that's what I can do.
I'm 100% telling you that.
Okay.
The only reason those kinds of limits exist for you, and arguably quite a lot of other people listening, is because you set them for yourself.
Right.
Like you hear the kind of classic phrase, "I remember the face, but not the name."
Yeah.
Why is it never the other way around? And as soon as, right? And as soon as you think of it that way, you're like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, that makes a great point. That makes a great point. You know, when you have a favorite film that you've watched, I don't know, maybe it's probably not become your favorite, but a film that you've watched once or twice that you love and really spoke to you, whatever that is, you'd know at least one or two of the actors in it by name. This way around. So there is a projection of capability that allows us some kind of scapegoat. Which is, I mean, it relates back to Socrates' problem with writing things down. It imbues us with the nature of forgetting. I will write this down so my brain doesn't have to do anything, and it just becomes this default behavioral response that when somebody's gone, hello, and you just tune it out because you're so used to that. Even if, right, in conversations, when somebody new is introduced to you, like you go, pluck a random name, I don't know, Jeremy, that's Jeremy Brett, one of the actors from Sherlock. It's something like, hi, my name's Jeremy. Jeremy, that's an interesting name. Is that with a G or a J? It's friendly conversation, but you've just acknowledged to yourself at that moment that name is important. And you are no longer, I mean, I refer to them as being insular and external. That's just made up terms that helps me reference it, but I'm no longer focused on my concern with the fact that I don't remember names very well, or how this interaction's going, or the purpose of this interaction. I'm all external and taking all of this information that's being shown to me. G or a J, that's interesting. Great. Anyway, let's move on. Guaranteed. Yeah. That name will be there towards the end of the conversation. How long that name remembers that you remember that name after the fact will change depending upon how much you use it. But
right.
at least within the conversation, you'll have that there. Yeah, limits for me. And again, this is just a personal view. Limits don't exist. Limits don't exist. I don't like the idea of it. So like when I first learn how to memorize names. There's tons of different mnemonic tricks. Some of them you can find in the monographs. But there's tons of mnemonic tricks you can use to remember people's names. So I could do 50, 60 names pretty well. So I thought, okay, I'll go blindfolded, sight unseen, and have to go boom immediately into doing it that way around. That became easy after a while. So I set myself up one of the memory training programs that would pop up a bunch of names and random photos. You'd have to remember them afterwards. So I'd set that by my bedside table. Soon as I woke up, I'd do like 50 or 60 names so I could try and do it from a stupor after I've had a hard night's sleep this way around. Just to see if I had something that was easy for me, or at least comfortable to a certain degree. What can I do that would make that even marginally more challenging? In the same way that people who work out, if you can run 1 mile one day, you run 1.1 miles the next. You just you keep adding it in that way around, and that was another kind of benefit towards the strong, capable mindset that I developed almost as a side effect after the fact. It became like one of these things that it's not a matter of if, it's more a matter of when, and telling myself a better story. Like, have you ever had that experience of when you've had a really vivid dream and you've woken up in the morning and you want to tell someone about it? You go, I had this great dream last night. And they say like, oh yeah, what was it about? You go,
right.
Hang on a minute. There's a little moment, however kind of loud or not, there's a little moment where your brain's gone, I'm not entirely sure what that information was. And it's kind of spiraled out of control to the point where you don't remember it. Later on in the day, where you're doing some other kind of menial thing, whatever it is, whether you're making a cup of tea or whatever, and then you go, oh, I remember. And you go and tell them this way around. That's it's not directly linked, but there is a connection towards the kind of story that you tell yourself. Not that you can think yourself smarter, but if it is that you say, you're saying, I don't know where this is, or I don't know this kind of information, change it to words like, I'll remember it later. You've still got this kind of affirmation and positivity that comes along with this, instead of immediately reinforcing whatever limiting belief that it has. I can't remember it at the moment. Mm-hmm. Right? Just some additional change in that way around. It's how I used to mess with people when I was doing my personal training. They'd be like, "Oh, I can't lift this, or I can't pick it up. How heavy is that?" 100 kilograms, whatever it is. I go, "Okay, you know your form, you know your position. Put a blindfold on." And I would make sounds like I'm messing with the weights, and like that was a struggle. How much do you think that was? I don't know, 80, 90 kilogram. Fair enough. I'd take a couple of plates off so it was really light. Okay, here you go. Take it slow, take it steady. Remember your form. Boom, straight up. And then eventually I'd just be back and forth that way around. So they didn't know where we were in terms of weight, and I would just add some extra on so they get past their personal best every time. And whether it was past the personal best by 1 or 2 pounds, 1 or 2 kilograms, 1 or 2 minutes, whatever it is that they were doing. And that to me indicated the strength that these kind of limiting beliefs can have as an effect over you. So like however long it is that you've thought that you don't remember names, that's something that's been reinforced for so long that it happens automatically, just like breathing. The second you change your internal language around that, you change your capabilities, because like, how long did it take you to learn your kids' names? I bet not very long.
No, you're right.
Right. That's the thing in that way. So yeah, limits with this particular thing, they don't exist. The only thing that will exist that will stop you is the amount of time that you can devote to it. But that's the same as learning anything.
Ben, it's fascinating to have you on. I could have you on for the whole week and just continue talking, but you've been so gracious with your time. Where do we send everybody to your website? Again, I have it in front of me. I love it. Tell us, where do we go? What do we do? All of the things. It'd be great.
Marvelous. So yeah, bencardall.com is my website. And the YouTube channel, it's at the Deductionist. But if you just put Ben Cardall into the search engine, my big bearded face will pop up pretty quickly. And yeah, same with Twitter, Instagram, this kind of thing. I'm on most of the socials as Ben Cardall, and then for other people who've taken the Ben Cardall name first, it's normally like Ben Cardall and then 221, or Ben Cardall then 221B, something entirely unoriginal that way around. So yeah, and then omniscientinsights.com is coming pretty soon. That's my training platform. And failing that, like my kind of sentence that I will talk to anyone. Send me an email if you want. Go through the website, send me an email. I can't always reply straight away, but I will always reply. That's my kind of analogy, mantra, whatever you want to call it, that way around. So yeah, almost forgot as well. Oh, sweet irony. I have my own podcast, the Deductionist podcast, which is episodes out on Fridays, in which me and my friend Adam we talk only about this kind of skill set. But fair warning, the only thing that we take seriously, the only thing, is the development of these skills. That's the only thing we take seriously. Anything else is up for satirical jibes that way, as the way that two sarcastic Englishmen tend to do.
There you go. Beautiful. So we'll put a link there, because people listening to this show, you're like, hey, I need more Ben, Dave. I don't want this to end. Great. Click the link, go over to Ben's podcast, follow, like, subscribe, share, and let people know about Ben's podcast as well. Thanks, Ben, for being part of the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I mean, I'd like to, just before I leave, give you a little demo, if I may.
Oh, please.
Just, I'll try and be quick. It won't be a 4-hour lecture on pens. This way around. So we can take what it is, looking at your window there, we can see certificates on the wall. There's photos of children. There's 3 pictures, but there's definitely two guys, 1 girl in the background, which could be that you have 2 boys and a girl. It could be that there are 2 photos. Oh, there we go. That way around. So there you go. Photos of that age, which will put you in the remit of being married for at least 20 years that way around. I would argue 25 tops that way around. Off the top of your head, do you know what day of the year your anniversary is on this year? Day of the week, sorry. Obviously, you know the day, but do you know the day of the week? It doesn't matter if you don't, but what's the honest answer to that?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. So that means at this stage then that the date is far away. So it'd be towards the end of the year, which will likely be October, November, December, that way around. October, there we go. You smiled earlier when I mentioned cats knocking the glass off, so which would mean that you have cats or owned cats or grew up in a house with cats. But I would argue, based on your candy, your interaction, that you wouldn't necessarily call yourself a cat person. more that you're an animal lover that way around. It doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah, I think cats don't think I'm their person. I like cats, but they don't like me. So there you go.
That's perfect. So have you owned cats? Do you own cats?
Yeah, we had one just passed away just a few months ago. But yeah, my wife's cat, and I have So yeah.
Sorry, that I couldn't see, but like I know how painful that is as a pet owner. My cookie this way around, he was a Labrador, 17 years old. He passed at the start of this year. I still can't even talk about that properly. So statistically speaking, then in terms of your connection and the way you like about things, married, the cat will more than likely have a human name, not like you. It's Meowington, the fluffy that way around.
Yeah.
So you can tell from the pictures and the bands that are around the guys, the kids in the background, that you will come from a family that holds not traditional views, but your own particular family traditions. You have particular places that you like to go, people that you like to visit, things that you like to do this way around, which would likely mean that you have. Religious is a big leap, but I would say that there is a spiritual kind of connection in that way around, that you guys either give to charity or recycle lots, or you operate a green life or whatever it is.
Okay, so my wife and I have a business called Upcycle Canada where we repurpose things that keep them in a landfill.
There you go. Your profile picture when we logged on had you playing a bass guitar. But it was a professional picture. So professional pictures of musical instruments that way around will mean music's a big part of your life. Will also mean you don't just play the bass guitar. You'll likely play the electric guitar as well, the kind of six stringer that way. We could keep going.
Wow. Now, when I came on at the beginning of this episode, I'm a little nervous, and you just, wow. That is amazing. And my cat's name was Liam, so there you go.
Liam!
How's that? Go. Yeah, not Fluffy or anything like that.
No.
Wow. That's amazing, Ben. Thank you. That was so much fun. So, okay. So if you saw that and you're like, wow, I know Dave, and I can see people going, yeah, whoa, yeah. They're cheering you on as you did that. So go over to Ben's YouTube channel, go to his website, watch every video, do all the things to encourage Ben to let more people see his stuff, because this gentleman's a real thing. And let's get that, I'm going to say it, Holmesian manner to our life.
Ooh, smashed it.
How's that? I practiced. But let's get that natural curiosity going for us and make it our superpower, not our untapped power. Right, Ben?
100% agreed, sir.
So thank you for being here. It was fun.
Thank you for having me. It's been a genuine pleasure.
That was great.
Mindshift Power Podcast, the podcast for teenagers and those who work with them. There's a huge problem in America today. There's a very large disconnect between teenagers and the adults who work with them. I'm looking to bridge that gap with real, raw, honest conversation, not held back by the chains of political correctness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. Want to understand teenagers today? Listen to this podcast. This podcast is for teens in the U.S. and Canada. To learn more, go to fatimabay.com/podcast or just look for Mindshift Power Podcast on any listening platform. I look forward to you being a faithful listener.